understanding yourself is the first step. Standing up for yourself is the second step. And communicating that well is the third step. These are all skills that we should teach kids. While growing up, I would always hear the example of he. He said this, he said that. The teacher would use the generic he. Right, so I thought I was bringing a change by said he/she. Even though it was uncomfortable, if I would make corrections, I would always add a she with that, or I would speak he/she. So 4 years ago, 5 years ago maybe, one very intelligent, smart, sensitive kid said, "Ma'am, do you think it's okay if we use the word they?" And I was like, wow, this is evolution. Hi, my name is Dr. Itisha Nagar. I am a professor of psychology at University of Delhi. My pronouns are she and her, and I identify as a feminist. I have 3 sisters and 1 brother. My brother is a 7-year-old German Shepherd called Sheru. I have grown up with largely women, barring my father, my sisters and my mother. And other than that, while I had co-ed education, all my college, and I've been teaching in all women's college, so I'm very, very comfortable surrounding with women. So much so that, sometimes I can almost see the difference between when you're, surrounded in an atmosphere where they're just women versus, when there's a different kind of a safety that you feel, there's different kind of expressions that come out. So let me start with this, that I'm the middle child, so I have an elder sister and a younger sister. There isn't much age difference between my elder sister and and between me. Although my younger sister is about 7 years younger to me and 9 years, almost like a decade of a difference. So there was more of sibling rivalry, or you can say, fights that would happen between me and my elder sister. Now, let me also say this, that throughout my life, I have been of a privileged body type. So I have been pretty much skinny. I have more or less fit into the ideal body type. So let me not say, like the other day I was talking in my class and we were discussing body types. So some people said, no ma'am, there is skinny shaming, etc. And then I was trying to explain them the individuals being, jerks versus systemic issues. So ask them, if you were given a choice, would you rather be fat or thin? And that solves the, problem. So my sister had been overweight, has, the issue of putting on more weight, while I have been pretty much, like I said, fitting into the body type. Now the thing about, siblings or even friends or whatever, whenever you fight, you almost always take up, everything and anything from the society that is, how do I put this? So you would take up all the biases in the society that you've been conditioned with, you've grown up with, and you use them against your sibling. So for example, if you think your sibling is not as smart as you, to bewkoof hai. Or body shaming, of course, and which is what we are talking about. So I have been reflecting on the fact that as a grown-up person, that while my sister bullied me too, I'm sure most of my comebacks related to her being fat. Ki tu to moti hai, you don't look nice in this, or laughing about her body weight, etc. And this is as children growing up. Having said that, there is so much of normalization about this kind of bullying. We see it on television, we see it in movies, we see it around us, that nobody really questions it. It's a given that, oh, you are fat. Even though we belong to the same family, we're eating the same kind of food, we probably have, we've grown up with the same kind of exercise as children. The only difference probably is genetics. So there is not, at least when you're a child, and even later on for that matter, your body weight, there's so much of changes happening. It's not in your control per se. And yet we make sure that someone who's fat or someone who's overweight feels that this is a character flaw, a moral issue, that, oh, how come you're fat? Right? So I think with my sister, now looking back, I'm sure this has been, while she has said many things, so she's not the victim over here per se, but I do realize that body shaming was used as a way of me bullying her, now to think about it. But with our younger sister, because we were almost parental to her, we both of us, in fact, I in particular, became very conscious over the fact that she should not be exposed to these messages, or she should not feel bad about her body type, especially because she's type 1 diabetic. And so am I. I'm type 1 diabetic, which means our health, our exercise, our food, they're all very monitored, right? So on top of that, when you have to control your food, there's insulin dependency, etc., and you're continuously looking at, let's say, how fat are you, how thin are you, etc., it can be very challenging. There are type 1 diabetics who stop taking insulin because they want to get thin, which they almost, it can lead to a very dangerous situation for them. So never mind, but I have, of course, thodi akal aa gayi thi by the time my youngest sister was in the teenage, and so I have been more having conversations about to kya ho gaya, theek hai, ye fit nahi aa raha, to kya ho gaya. The other day, but then again, you're just one person giving positive messages against the society. On the other hand, my elder sister, I feel, because she has been fat herself, she has been, if not extreme, but neutral about body shaming messages, in the sense that, because probably she's sensitive about her own body, she thinks it's okay to, I won't say shame, but monitor your body, and therefore those kind of comments. In fact, I have been the one standing up, no, don't say that to her. So coming back, like this weekend, I was speaking to this one kid, 5-year-old boy, very sweet kid. And he's sitting next to me and he says, "Mera peet nikal raha hai." So I was like, "To kya ho gaya? Mera bhi to peet nikal raha hai." So it starts just like that. Somewhere this kid has heard ki peet nikalna is like something wrong about it, acha nahi hai. If there are few people, especially people that he values and respects and craves the respects of, some uncle, aunties, father, mother, if these are the people who tell him you're good and we love you the way you are, I don't think bullying later on can actually become a buffer against the bullying that can happen in school or college or even adulthood for that matter. I think one of the things that we've all grown up with are unsaid rules about how dressing up in a particular way reflects on your character as a woman. This is completely and totally unsaid. So for example, if your friends are coming over, how you dressed up, and if an uncle comes up, then you can't be in shorts. So these are some things that, I would say that I didn't even contest these questions growing up. It was just normal part of being a woman, right? That society monitors our clothes and that's okay. So when I was in college, for example, and I think this is an experience of, especially a lot of girls coming from conservative family, I came from one, that the experience is that whenever we go to college, we'll probably be dressed up with, everything okay, salwar kurta, if not salwar kurta, jeans and top, etc. But there were a lot of times we'd go in college and we'd change our clothes, and then we'd go out, click a few pictures and come back. So that has also been my experience. As a young woman, I was not very comfortable with showing my arms, even though, like I said, even though I fit the body type. But even then there was, this shame associated with, oh, I'm wearing sleeveless and how much are my thighs or my legs or etc. So coming back to this thing that, but over a period of time, I realized that my clothes are my choice. They have nothing to do with my intelligence. They have nothing to do with my personality. They have nothing to do with how good or bad a person I am. And slowly and steadily, I started choosing what I wanted to wear. And I wanted to try out all kinds of things. Talking about at my profession, luckily, I am in one of the more liberal colleges, and women's colleges again give you much more freedom कि लड़के नहीं है तो आप कुछ भी पहन सकते हो. That is again an unsaid thing कि okay, लड़के नहीं हैं तो आप कुछ पहन सकते हो. Thank you so much. So, but कुछ भी पहन सकते हो. So, talking about being a professor, I don't think that. While I understand that, everyone looks at whether you're wearing a sleeveless or whether you're wearing how much your back is showing, how your sari is tucked up, etc. So I do realize these are all notions out there for sure. But I would credit where credit is due. I haven't felt the pressure of someone. I have almost always had women colleagues come up, professors come up and compliment about, oh, your sari looks lovely, you look beautiful. And that's a very positive experience of being surrounded by all women. Having said that, I have friends who teach in schools, co-ed colleges. Someone maybe who works in co-ed college might give you a different experience. And co-ed schools, for example, There are as much as girls are being shamed for the length of their skirts, there are also norms for what a woman teacher can wear and cannot wear. So leggings, for example, should not be too skinny. The other day only my friend was told to get global hair color, balayage and everything else won't work, so you can't get streaks, etc. Because you have to set the example. So as in school setups or educational setups in general, the teachers and women teachers and professors are the one who are monitoring and controlling and giving the messages of the patriarchal society about the length of your skirt, about what, for example, wearing white t-shirts, so how your brush, what color your brush should be, or how your hair are tied up, how many earrings you're wearing, etc. All of those things. So yeah, I understand that I am in a very privileged position. I am a role model, and while teaching is considered to be a patriarchally accepted best choice for women, ladies लोगों के लिए teaching तो बहुत अच्छा option है. आप बच्चों के साथ स्कूल जाओ और बच्चों के साथ वापस आ जाओ. So it is the job that least affects your domestic responsibilities according to patriarchal agents. I have not become a professor to replicate patriarchal norms. I have become a professor to set, hopefully become a role model which breaks these norms. So when there are so many girls. The beauty of teaching in a government college is that I meet women who come from all over the country. There are women who study from South Delhi, there are women who are from Northeast India, there are women who are from, let's say, Delhi NCR, South India, all Kashmir, all over. They have come with their own understanding of, Delhi kya hota hai, or city life kya hoti hai, or dressing up as a, kya hota hai. So a lot of times, me dressing up, my opinion, the way I present myself, can really help them break their own notions that they've grown up with. That, like, one of the compliments that I get is beauty with brains, and I don't find that a compliment at all. I do understand that a lot of women who say exactly the same thing as me do not get the same traction because they do not look like me. So people say I'm a social media influencer, or there are lots of students. I would like to believe that it's about a lot of things that are right, but I also understand I fit a package of, the ideal woman, beautiful and intelligent. Even though that intelligence still, doesn't work with them. How are you pretty and how are you intelligent? So I think I would like to establish this, that there are no rules for what a woman needs to be. You break the rules, you make the rules, whatever you want to, it's your choice. So that's the kind of education I'm hoping to give. See, as an educator, I have always known that I am in a very influential position. Even before I was on social media. So monitoring myself, knowing that there are lots of people who can be influenced, always makes me double check my words in a good way. And which I think is something that every human being should do. You should not just vomit things out without really reflecting on what your words and what implications these things might have had. So being on social media is not really any different for me in terms of कि okay, दो बात लिख रही हूँ मैं, तो someone is going to read this and see that it is coming from a professor of psychology in a country where mental health has already so much of stigma and taboo and misperceptions around it. So I'm always checking myself in a good way. Having said that, any other kind of social perception for that matter, for example, before it's only in the pandemic when I made my profile public. Before that, I would never have my students on social media. That was one ethical boundary that I didn't want to cross because of not wanting to mix personal with professional. But both post-pandemic or post-2020, there is no personal and professional for most people. That line has become blurred and we're all navigating through it. So now, while a lot of my students follow me, they dare not text me on DM. They dare not, write on my comments and expect a comment back. I still say, this is my email ID, official email ID. Take an appointment from me if you need to talk to me, if you need to discuss it. I had and these are rules which are very easily set. So in first year, some student not knowing me messages me, ma'am, my attendance was not marked on Instagram. Today in class, I didn't. So I didn't reply at all. At the same time, my students very well know that that's my personal space, Instagram. You want to meet me professionally, you meet me in my professional space. So that's there. People can have all sorts of perceptions about you. Kuch to log kahenge, logon ka kaam hai kehna. Having said that, how they interact with me using that perception is when it would bother me. And to a great extent, I do not have people coming up to me on my face telling me things that I don't want to hear about myself or trolling me. Baki piche jisko jo kehna hai kehta rahe, that's fine. And yeah, I think that's how it works for me. I think I was just telling this to a colleague the other day that, a lot of people that I know have changed as a result of the experience of pandemic. There is so much of emotional processing that was overdue. It had accumulated over the last so many years because of the fast pace of life. It was just easier to brush things under the carpet. Family, not just individuals, families for that matter. A lot of families were probably working because they were not seeing each other for 24/7, 365. There was living. There were a lot of individual conflicts. There was a lot of time for reflection. There was a lot of time for thinking that came up. For me personally, I think it's completely changed me in a way that I have become even more bold in terms of ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा क्या हो जाएगा. You have seen death and suffering so up close. My friends have lost people. There was, people who, there were so many financial issues that people have gone through, health issues that people are still going through. Looking at all of that, some of the very smaller things in life, especially a capitalist running after life, jo pehle se being that, hamster in a wheel, that no longer, even though I had doubts about that life before pandemic also, it no longer appeals to me. I'm looking for more meaningful interactions. I'm looking for more authentic experiences in my life now, and that's how it's changed me. I don't have patience for superficiality or small talks or anything that takes a lot of energy but doesn't make my life meaningful. Some of the meaningful experiences is that, for example, when you're sitting down and talking to a person, you ask them, hey, how are you doing? Do you genuinely want to know? Or is it just something that, a pleasantry that you've used? I genuinely want to know that how are you doing? How's life been for you? Are you happy in your life? What are the values that you adhere to? How is the world, the changing world, the politics of the world, how is that affecting you personally? How gender affects you? How your caste status, class status affects you? What's your journey been like? What's your lived experience like of your life? What can I learn from you? What can I, and also I want to share so much. This is a very important, it contributes to so much meaning in my life. It contributes to me professionally. It contributes to these experiences contribute personally. I feel this is how these are some of the experiences that I feel like they matter a lot for me. So that's one, of course. Other than that, I think pandemic has just given you the strength to follow your heart. Because knowing that it can end any time makes you really, realize कि किस चीज़ में हमें it sets your priorities clear, So that's what's happened to me. My priorities have become more clear. Of course, it's very troubling, not to mention heartbreaking, when one thinks that you die without the gender gap ever being closed, for instance. And with the social media explosion, there is a cause to care about every second. And as an empath, you're very likely to feel extremely overwhelmed emotionally about a lot of injustices out there, a lot of wrong. And when the justice is systemic, as individuals, we are all the more likely to feel an overwhelming guilt and feel helpless, setting in on feelings of helplessness and maybe anxiety about nothing being in control, or not being able to, किसी का आप दुख कम नहीं कर पा रहे हो. आप एक का करते हो, वहाँ 10 और न्यूज़ आ जाती है. अब दूसरे के साथ कुछ करते हो काम, तीसरी न्यूज़ आ जाती है. So dealing with all of that, especially as a young person, now I wouldn't call myself extremely young, but I have learned from my experiences. So yes, there was a lot of anger, there still is a lot of anger. Having said that, I also now understand the system wants you to get very angry and thak haar ke baith jao. Nobody benefits from, well, actually the system only, this unjust system benefits from empaths with nervous breakdown. Nobody else benefits from. Nothing, you don't change the world with a nervous breakdown. Having said that, it is very important to, understand empathy is a resource, energy is a resource. As long as I feel my life is meaningfully contributing towards not adding to the injustices, personally as well as professionally, am I growing as a person? For example, growing up, homophobia, trans issues, no awareness of all of that. All I knew is gender. I didn't understand the intersections at all. But so I had a kid in my class who said, student actually, said that while growing up, I would always hear the example of he. He said this, he said that. The teacher would use the generic he. Right, so I thought I was bringing a change by said he/she. Even though it was uncomfortable, if I would make corrections, I would always add a she with that, or I would speak he/she. So 4 years ago, 5 years ago maybe, one very intelligent, smart, sensitive kid said, ma'am, do you think it's okay if we use the word they? And I was like, wow, this is evolution. I thought I was bringing change by, removing the generic he. Now we have to, evolve. Because injustice everywhere is, I personally feel like आपके साथ अगर कुछ गलत हुआ है, how can you not empathize with another person who's feeling the same kind of emotion? So, yeah, don't get overwhelmed. Conserve your energy. Evaluate your life. Are you on the right track? Have fun, and find your tribe. Find the people. I have constantly been told my emotions are growing up, friends early, especially extremely patriarchal people who are very anti-emotions. So you say that women are emotional, but one of the strongest emotions, I think, as if men are not emotional, but anger is an emotion. So a lot of men are taught to just be angry. So I've been told that, oh, you're too much, you're thinking too much, you're too emotional, you're feeling too much, you're too much. Took me a very long time to realize I'm not too much. You expect too little from life. And so, yeah, I now use my emotions, my sensitivity. I don't have to constantly fight trying to prove and make space for my emotions and sensitivity. अब मैं उसको अपने काम में लेके आती हूँ. And I have found through social media, the beauty of social media, a community of people who resonate with my ideas. It helps me feel like हाँ सही track पे जा रहे हैं, कुछ सही चल रही जिंदगी है. As long as you're doing that, it's okay. As individuals, we can do probably limited, but as collectives, we can really shake things up. I think for the longest time, I was in a body which was constantly in fight mode. So, to become aware of the sensations in your body, pleasure, pain, different emotions, is itself an arriving for you. A lot of, because it just feels normal, whatever you're experiencing. So for example, I would constantly feel a lot of anger, given the circumstances that I've grown up in. And I think anyone who's not angry with how things are in the world, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Right? So I would constantly feel a lot of anger. I was in a lot of fight state, this fight or flight survival mechanism. And, that's when I really realized that what's really happening? Why am I so angry all the time? I love people. Why am I snapping at them? Why am I getting irritable at them? And that's when I started doing a lot of self-work. And to a great extent, for a lot of people, anger is just another name for grief. It's an expression of grief. I was able to reconcile, still am, with my other emotions that anger was covering. There was fear, there was anxiety, there was apprehension, there was lack of control, instability that I was feeling, and all of that was just being presented as anger, because anger is a very powerful emotion. To say you're sad would mean, hey, you're such a loser, stop being sad. But anger is something that makes people listen to you, even if it's not out of respect but fear. So that's probably why, for whatever reason, that became my way of expressing myself. Not so much now, not at all actually. So what do I do now to be closer? And not to mention, all women who are above 30 right now grew up without the the luxury of social media. It's with social media, I feel a lot of Gen Z, to a great extent, they're able to explore so much, whether it's career, whether it's finding a tribe, whether it's realizing being gay is not a crime. It's actually a beautiful thing. There are other people out there. It's just a difference, for that matter, whether it's neurodivergence or an autistic person realizing, hey, I'm not a mad person, I am a different person. So we did not grow up with that luxury. We grew up with a lot of, हम लोग वो डायल अप इंटरनेट वाले लोग हैं कि सिर्फ ईमेल चेक करके वापस आ गए, kind of a thing. So because of lack of awareness, so we were still using maybe magazines, a cosmopolitan magazine, to understand sexuality. Mind you, even in spite of being extremely close to my friends since college, we never talked about orgasms. We never talked about masturbation. It was the elephant in the room that nobody addressed at that point of time. It is the openness with which the Gen Z talks about their sexuality. For example, we have so many pages on Instagram or other social media platforms that address sexuality, women's sexuality in particular, that talk about sex education. I almost feel sad that why did I not get this sooner? It would have saved me a lot of suffering in interpersonal relationships as well as personally speaking. Even for that matter, going to gynac, I don't know, maybe even today, but at least back then it was always associated with, let's say, if you're married, only then you go to gynac. Even the concept of UTIs did not really exist. Even if you're suffering from UTI, how would you know that it's a UTI unless you're like, okay, it must be, everyone must be going through this, because we never talked about that. So there is greater understanding of your body. There is greater awareness of differences in sexuality. There is understanding of how trauma affects sexuality in women. And sexual trauma, I do not think any woman would be foreigner to the concept of sexual trauma. Aate jate, growing up, if there are, let's say, 100 kids in my class, I'm sure 90 of them have experienced molestation, if not more, at some point of time, or sexual assault at some point of time growing up or not. But because our condition is not as bad as that, we always use a girl or a woman who's probably going through something worse to say that, oh, mere ko to sirf Eve teasing hui sirf. Mere ko sirf chheda. If the word teasing itself is, belittles the problem, because teasing is something that bhai behan do to each other, chhedkhani. It grossly belittles. So there was no space to talk about. Me Too came today. Growing up, there was no space to talk about this was not okay, this was not right. If I was touched by my, let's say, the coach who was supposed to teach me swimming, or if the man just walking on the road touched me and went away, or if a man was constantly staring at me, or if someone, these are all incidents that have happened, or someone who was engaging in, who was jerking on the road near a girls' college. Such common experience that we again as society do not address, do not see. Even uniform checking, for that matter, that happens in schools. Is there any monitoring of what's happening to kids? Does that classify under sexual abuse? A female teacher touching you or checking, or even male teacher commenting about your clothes? What are the why do we not have discussions around these topics? So I know that there's a lot of flack that millennials and older people give Gen Z, but I would definitely like to credit their enthusiasm. They have, as a generation, they have removed at least 2-3 layers of shame that our generation had, if not more. And looking at them helps me, at least as a woman, as a person, feel more normal and confident, and it helps me own up myself. I would say that. I didn't even think I had right to do that. That is the power of abuse. You don't even think you have a control over what can be done to your body. अच्छा, मैं बोल भी सकती हूँ कि मेरे को टच ना करो. Can I actually, push away someone? What if they tell me आप ज़्यादा सोच रहे थे, हमारा टच तो ऐसा टच नहीं था. Constant self-doubt कि ये शायद bad touch नहीं था, but we know it was not okay. All of us self-doubt because we are embarrassed कि अच्छा उसने, they should be embarrassed of doing this to young women or doing this to women for that matter, not us. For example, I didn't know that, when I would get very angry, I don't like to be touched. I don't like to be touched, especially interpersonally in relationships. अगर conflict होता है या लड़ाई चल रही है, मुझे गुस्सा आ रहा है या my body is overwhelmed with fear or anger, I don't like being touched. And a lot of people try to reassure you by reaching out to you. And I have on many occasions, pushed someone's hand away where that was taken as and fragile masculinity. Need I say more? That was taken on one's ego rather than nobody does this deliberately. People have the right to feel, be the way they want to. It is not personal, first and foremost. And men, I think, need to understand this. Not everything is about them. So, but when you don't understand this, when you don't have a place and avenue to talk about these things, what ends up happening is that you try to, you internalize something being wrong. No, you don't know that it's very normal. It's a response to something that had happened to you long ago, or it's how your body still responds. It's you're not thinking about it at all. You take it on your character. Oh, I'm such a bad person. Someone was trying to comfort me and I pushed their hand away. Like I said, I don't even feel I have the right to, I feel bad कि मेरे को guilt होता था कि अरे मैंने ऐसा कर दिया और मैं ऐसा क्यों करती हूँ. Today, I'm able to assert that this is what happens to me. This is what I want, how I, want you to behave around me, whether I want to be left alone, and I do it very respectfully. Very respectfully. Give me space, give me time. If this works for you, great. If this doesn't work for you, the door is open, you're free to walk out. Understanding yourself is the first step. Standing up for yourself is the second step. And communicating that well is the third step. These are all skills that we should teach kids. These are all skills we should teach young people. It would spare everyone so much of struggle and suffering. I wouldn't know better. When I was working with autistic kids, I did not know that if therapy is saying, look into my eyes, it's absolutely wrong if the child does not want to look in. But I did that because the book said so, that this is therapy. If the child didn't want to be touched, sensory issues. I thought that, maybe coming from a Punjabi family, I don't, but I've spent a lot of time with Punjabi families. I thought the answer to everything is a jhappi. And even if you saw Munna Bhai MBBS, you thought, everything is जादू की झप्पी से solve हो जाता है. नहीं होता, किसी के लिए जादू की झप्पी, and that is not personal, should not take that as rejection. It is just a difference. And we are all different. बस ये फ़र्क है कि जब हम if we are not, अगर हमारे साथ कुछ inconvenient होता है, we are very ready to say कि ये गलत किया किसी ने. But we don't, very few times we're able to understand कि आपको अच्छा नहीं लगा तो हो सकता है ऐसी दूसरे को अच्छा नहीं लगता है. So I think there's so much more we can learn about how to handle our relationships better, how to, whether it's at workplace, whether it's at personal front, doesn't matter. There's so much learning to do, and I think that will heal the world. more than anything else. I think there's a very common way of making sure resistance and protest doesn't happen. When you tell people who have been marginalized or victimized, you tell them, hey, we're not listening to you as long as you express it in the most perfect manner possible. The other day, someone asked me, how do I calmly tell someone that, they've made sexist comments about me? I said, why should we be so bothered about being calm when someone has been so obnoxious to us? So, anyone who challenges power, it is the power that tries to, control you by telling you, hey, we're listening, we're open, we're democratic at the end of the day. But आपको perfectly express करना पड़ेगा अपने आप को, and as you know, perfection is a goal that you'll never reach. If you fall for that trap, you've essentially fallen for the killing of the resistance by the people in power. One, the policing that comes. On the other hand, the second thing is amongst the community of feminists, for example. Abhi kuch time pehle, I had this 18-year-old girl, 17, 18-year-old girl who'd come to one of my lectures, and she said that, ma'am, I really value women's lives, and there's so much of injustice that happens to women, but I am unsure about calling myself feminist, not because I don't want to, but because I don't know if I am or not. So I'm like, there's no certification course where you get a thappa. She was looking at me कि मैं पता नहीं उसको थप्पा दूंगी कि हाँ आप feminist हो. I said, whatever you said right now is feminism. That you are concerned about the systemic structural injustices that women or people who identify as women or other marginalized folks go through. Having said that, how can you be perfect? How can you know everything? Feminism is not, you can't define ABC is feminism. ऐसे होना चाहिए behaviorally, ऐसा होना चाहिए. Feminism is above all. It is it's rooted in the values of social justice. For example, diversity, respecting voices, democratic conduct. These are the values that guide you, that should guide you as a human being. But feminism as an ideology believes in that. So when I say I am, committed to social justice, if someone comes up to me and tells me that there is structural injustice happening to you, and I feel that women have gone through structural injustice. So let's say this is a person who's been, marginalized, abused, there's violence happened to them because of their sexuality, because of their caste, because of their class, because of their being differently wired brain, because of them being labeled as mad by the society. There's certain, forces that have taken away their agency, their, why would I not listen to them? So for me, feminism is that, hey, I understood things like that yesterday because they made sense to me. Today, I'm reading up more. I'm learning, I'm listening to people more. I'm learning more, and that's what I'm dedicated to. If I can look back at my journey from last 10 years and I can see evolution on the lines of, am I committed? Does social justice matter to me? Does respecting people's opinion matter to me? How can I do this better tomorrow? So I think I'm a feminist. So that's that.
Like what you saw? Support us so we can create more empowering content for you. Like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel.